Reach for the speed, reach for the whistle, go where the rail may run. Reach for the words, reach for the story, follow the rainbow sun. To a shining time station, where dreams can come true, waiting there for you.
Located along the former New York Central water level route in Elkhart, Indiana. Across the street from the Lakeshore and Michigan Southern Railroad station built in 1900 is the National New York Central Railroad Museum. The museum, housed within a former New York Central freight house, is dedicated to the history and preservation of the New York Central Railroad, an eastern road that was once a common sight and a titan of rail travel throughout the 20th century. Although the museum's main focus is on the New York Central, the post-merger railroads of Penn Central and Conrail are also represented within their collection. The museum began as a project of the Lakeshore Railroad Historical Foundation, an Elkhart-based non-profit rail preservation group founded in 1976 by Robert G. Spa. Throughout the late 70s and early 80s, Lakeshore operated a series of excursions with Buffalo Creek and Gully No. 13, then known as Lakeshore Central System 1977, over the Pumpkin Vine line from Shipshewana, Indiana to Middlebury, Indiana. Following the Pumpkin Vine line excursions, Lakeshore leased 1977 and their Rock Island coaches to the Iron Horse Festival in Logansport, Indiana from 1981 to 1983. In the mid-80s, Lakeshore parted ways with their excursion train, selling it to the Iron Horse Festival in 1983. In 1984, Lakeshore acquired New York Central L3A Mohawk 3001 and moved it to their property in Elkhart. In the mid-1980s, Lakeshore approached the city of Elkhart about creating a railroad museum and making it a city concern. Their proposal was enthusiastically received by then Elkhart Mayor James Perrin, and the National New York Central Railroad Museum was born. In 1986 or 1987, Lakeshore leased most of their equipment to the city and sold them their property. Lakeshore members acted as members of the museum's first board and to assist the museum. The museum was established in 1987 and opened to the public in 1989. Inside the museum, visitors can view an extensive collection of memorabilia and exhibits pertaining to the Central, including a Pennsylvania Railroad K4 made out of almost 500,000 toothpicks, an interactive display showing how a New York Central Mohawk works, a replica of the interior of a station master's office, along with a colossal amount of model trains on display. Located within a large room at the rear of the museum building is a massive O-scale layout, surrounded by towering shelves containing the Stanley Bell model train collection, donated to the museum in 2010. Upon exiting the model train display via a door to the outside world, visitors can ride the museum's Nibco Century Flyer amusement park train, or explore the museum's outdoor equipment collection. The most noteworthy piece and the star attraction at the museum is New York Central L3A Mohawk 3001. A 1940 graduate of Alco's Schenectady Works, 3001 is one of 25 L3A Mohawks built for the New York Central Railroad. Over the course of a nearly 2-decade-long service career with the Central, 3001 pulled scores of mile-a-minute passenger and freight trains across the Midwest and Northeast. Retired from service on February 14, 1957, the Mohawk was spared from the scrapper's torch, dressed up as a Texas and Pacific engine numbered 909, and was sent down to Dallas, Texas for static display to replace T&P number 638, a 210-4 Texas type that had spent 6 years on display on the State Fair of Texas Fairgrounds. In the coming years, the locomotive was handed over to the Southwest Historical Society and joined their growing Age of Steam Railroad Museum. For nearly 3 decades, aside from minor cosmetic alterations, 3001 sat on display in the Texas sun. As time went on, interest in keeping 3001 was waning, since it had no connection to Texas. In 1976, Lakeshore founding member Robert G. Spa discovered that 909 was actually New York Central 3001, and laid the groundwork for bringing the locomotive home to Elkhart. In 1984, the Lakeshore Railroad Historical Foundation traded Pennsylvania Railroad GG1 number 4903 for 3001, and the locomotive was towed via Conrail and Union Pacific trackage to the group's site in Elkhart, Indiana. In 1986 or 1987, The locomotive was leased to the city of Elkhart for a term of 100 years and was put on display at the National New York Central Railroad Museum in 1988. For 4 decades, several attempts to restore the Mohawk to operating condition were made, but none were successful. Following the dissolution of the Lakeshore Railroad Historical Foundation by the Indiana Secretary of State in 2017, the fate of the locomotive was uncertain. However, the locomotive's future would not hang in the balance forever. The Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society stepped in and acquired the locomotive from the city of Elkhart and the Museum of the American Railroad in 2023. Today, the 3001 is the centerpiece of the American Locomotive Project, dedicated to bringing the once forlorn Mohawk back to life and operating it on Fort Wayne's Indiana Rail Experience excursions. For more information or to donate, visit AmericanLoco.org. Displayed behind the Mohawk is a well-traveled water tender. Built for New York Central L3B Mohawk 3042 in 1940, the tender was saved by the railroad for non-revenue service as a tender-shaped diesel fuel tank car. In the 1970s, the tender was sold to Ross Rowland and racked up thousands of miles as the water tender for Reading 2101 for the American Freedom Train and Chessie Seam Special. In 1979, the tender was damaged in a roundhouse fire in Silver Grove, Kentucky, and was subsequently sold to SPA in the 1980s to serve as 3001's water tender. The tender was acquired by the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society in 2023 and is set to depart the museum along with 3001 in the coming months. Displayed next to the Mohawk is Pennsylvania Railroad GG1 number 4882. Refined by noted industrial designer Raymond Loewy in the 1930s, 4882 is one of 139 GG1 type electric locomotives built for the Pennsy between 1934 and 1943. For nearly 30 years, 4882 and its sisters sprinted over the Northeast Corridor, pulling the Pensy's crack passenger and freight trains. By the end of the 1970s, the GG1s were removed from service and sold off by Conrail, with several ending up in the hands of Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. Following a nearly 50-year service career, 4882 was retired from service on October 31, 1983, and was subsequently purchased by the city of Elkhart for $7,500 from a New Jersey rail operations auction in 1987. The locomotive is notable for being the final GG1 to operate under its own power, with its final day of operation on October 29, 1983. Located next to the museum building with a replica New York Central passenger train behind it is New York Central E8A number 4085. Dressed in the New York Central's striking two-tone gray lightning stripe paint scheme, 4085 is one of 60 E8As built for the Central and spent decades pulling the Central's famous name passenger trains, such as the 20th Century Limited. Over the span of a 25-year service career, the locomotive would change hands 3 times before ending up in the possession of New Jersey Transit in 1978 or 1979. Following a very brief stint in commuter service on the NJT system, 4085 would be retired from service in 1983 and was purchased by the city of Elkhart for $6,500 from a New Jersey rail operations auction in 1987. 4085 is notable for pulling the final eastbound 20th Century Limited from Chicago, Illinois on December 2, 1967. Museum visitors can view the interior of the locomotive via see-through panels on the fireman's side of the locomotive, tour the cab of the locomotive, and blow its horn. At the back of the property, next to the back gate, is Chicago Southshore and South Bend interurban car number 15. Built by Pullman in 1926, 15 was one of the hundreds of interurban cars built for the Southshore line and was once a common sight for commuters in the Chicago area. Following the dissolution of the Chicago Southshore and South Bend Railroad in 1984, the car was purchased by the National Park Service as a key component of a development plan to utilize several South Shore Line cars for a shuttle service within the Indiana Dunes National Park. However, the plan was never realized, and the National Park Service donated number 15 to the National New York Central Railroad Museum in 2002. Alongside the Mohawk, the GG1, the E8, the South Shore car, and the water tender, the museum has several New York Central cabooses, the Selkirk Wreck Train, New Haven Grill Dining Car 953, and a sparse collection of passenger and freight cars on display. Since the production of this video began many years ago, change is forthcoming to the museum. Through a partnership with the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society, the museum will be de-accessing select pieces of rolling stock from their collection and developing a new master plan to position the institution as an anchor for neighborhood redevelopment. The future looks bright for this once stagnant museum. The museum is open Wednesday through Saturday from 10 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. For those interested in learning more, visit nnycrrmuseum.org.